I'd like to begin by pointing out that my opponent did not advance a single argument why same-sex marriage is intrinsically good. Her only defense of prioritizing marriage is that it would spill over into ending other forms of discrimination. By focusing on these arguments, she has conceded that employment discrimination, bullying, and hate crimes are the most pressing issues facing the LGBT movement. Employment discrimination means that LGBT people cannot sustain their livelihoods and therefore face poverty and homelessness. They cannot support themselves or their families. This is a material lifestyle deficit that is substantially more extreme than not being married. Equally bad is bullying. LGBT kids face bullying in schools just because they're different. We have seen a recent epidemic of suicides by LGBT children that have been the victims of bullying. To prioritize same-sex marriage, then, is to condemn those children to death. The question now becomes, what strategy should the LGBT movement take to achieve these goals? Her main point is that same-sex marriage would legitimize the LGBT lifestyle, thus making discrimination and violence in other areas less likely to occur. But she has not responded to several arguments that I made against this claim. First, same-sex marriage would create a massive backlash from conservative social groups. These people will never accept the LGBT lifestyle, and they would be angered by the achievement of marriage equality. This would catalyze the opposition into even stronger resistance in other areas, which would make it extremely difficult to end employment discrimination or violence. It would be a grave mistake to underestimate the strength of social conservatives in this country. No matter how misguided their views, they still command political and cultural power that could be aimed directly at the LGBT movement. It would be prudent to pursue a strategy that circumvented the strength of these groups, while still aiming to achieve material gains in the lives of LGBT individuals. One such strategy would be prioritizing employment discrimination and violence. Since these areas are less visible to the public, they would be less likely to incite massive backlash from the conservative movement. Second, she conceded that marriage only legitimizes the LGBT lifestyle for those that actually want to marry. For the majority of the LGBT movement, that is not the case. Many LGBT people are too young to marry, or simply don't want to live a domestic lifestyle. Those people would continue to face backlash and harassment because they did not marry, and therefore their sexuality was not legally recognized. This would make it extremely difficult to achieve gains in ending employment discrimination and violence, since there would be a large group of LGBT people whose lifestyle would not be seen as legitimate. Third, even if she proves that same-sex marriage could lead to advancements in other areas of rights, she has not proven that it is necessary to do so. A unified movement working towards ending employment discrimination and violence would be able to achieve gains in these areas even if same-sex marriage was not yet legal. This is significant for this debate because there is only a chance that the time spent working towards same-sex marriage will be time that employment discrimination and violence could continue, which would mean poverty and death for a large number of LGBT people. Her next argument is that since same-sex marriage is the focus of the LGBT movement now, a transition to focusing on employment discrimination and violence would take significant resources. I don't believe this is true. All it would take would be for people to start lobbying for an end to these other forms of discrimination, which could be achieved instantly. Even if I was in court yesterday litigating for same-sex marriage, I could be on the streets today protesting employment discrimination. I'm really not sure what resources would be consumed by this switch. Finally, she says that the civil rights movement actually proves her argument that legal victories change cultural attitudes on discrimination. While she is correct that the Civil Rights Act ended de jure discrimination, my point remains that it did not change the racism that individual people display on a daily basis. We can still see racism across this country, and the same would be true of homophobia even if there was a legal victory. Since her argument that same-sex marriage would spill over to the achievement of other rights relies on the idea that a cultural shift away from homophobia would occur, this argument is very significant. For these reasons, I ask that you negate.